Hello everyone, and welcome to our August Florida Native Plant Society Lunch and Learn. We're happy to be here with Eugene Kelly, our President and Policy and Legislation Chair, below me, and then above me, Lily Anderson-Messick, our Director of North Florida Programs. I am Director of Communications and Programming. So, Gene, take it.
Hello, everyone. I'm assuming that most, if not all of you, know what has transpired over the last, I guess it's now been about a week and a half. It's been a real whirlwind. And I'd like to say, first of all, that we really appreciate the response that we had from our members to our action alerts and to really mobilize and show up and speak out in defense of the state parks. It culminated in really just barely 1 week's time, the governor essentially capitulating, and he implied that they've gone back to the drawing board, and that implies they'll be coming back to us again sometime next year. I'm hopeful that that's really not going to happen, and that was just a little bit of face saving. But anyway, I'm gonna just talk a little bit about what they had proposed and about something else that has now come up, another attack. It seems like conservation lands are under attack from every direction right now, and we want you to know that we're paying attention to that, and we're preparing to engage and really working very effectively as part of a coalition with a lot of other organizations. So before I talk about this, I should acknowledge some of them as well, because they all played such a pivotal role in us beating back this attack on the state parks. The Florida Wildlife Federation was front and center, Thousand Friends of Florida, Sierra Club of Florida, the Florida Springs Council. I can Friends of the Everglades. We had Zoom meetings, it seemed almost daily, trying to coordinate our efforts. And we had been meeting for some months now, really trying to strategize on how to protect land conservation, to get more funding for it, and to fight off what we saw were attacks. And so we were, in that sense, really ready to hit the ground running when this all did happen, because we'd all been meeting and we knew stuff was going on that we were going to have to work together to beat back. So compliments to all of those other organizations that also did so much to really score this big win for the environment in Florida. So first off, this is a map of Jonathan Dickinson State Park. And really, I guess you could say this was the poster child for what they were doing. Everything they were proposing was incompatible and totally wrong for state parks. And what they were proposing for Jonathan Dickinson was just so over the top ridiculous. So we're just going to use a couple of examples, starting with Jonathan Dickinson. And so this is a map that actually came from DEP. This is one of the maps that they released so that the public could really understand what they were proposing. And the areas you see shaded in purple, that's where they were proposing to put golf courses. 2 18-hole golf courses, and I guess 1 9-hole golf course, and support facilities, a clubhouse. Really kind of ridiculous. This was another part of the information that they provided. They did this for each of the 9 different parks where they were proposing these improvements. And this actually is a write-up of the actual amendment they wanted to make to the unit management plan for Jonathan Dickinson. A unit management plan, that's just DEP's term for their management plan. And the management plan did not call for golf courses, so it would require an amendment. And so this is what they were proposing. You can read some of the text here. The action to leverage existing improved lands and adjacent upland suitable for the design and construction of public golf courses and associated facilities. Existing improved lands and adjacent uplands. I'm not sure what that all is supposed to mean, but in any case.
I believe that there at one point were like military
Yes.
installations there, and that have been restored since, and that was their excuse for.
Yeah. Well, and when I think improved lands, I think it's developed, and
Yes,
that's not the case here.
Disingenuous.
Yeah, and so I think this helps illustrate it. This is a habitat map, basically, for Jonathan Dickinson. This came from the current unit management plan. And that bright green color that you see along the right side, the east side of the property, that's scrub. And so if you match that up with the purple shading that we just saw in the previous map, they were just basically going to max out all that area of scrub with golf course. And there a couple ridges. If you can see my pointer, there's a ridge through here and another one. Well, 2 ridges, that brown color, which is scrubby flatwoods, and they were going to develop that. So basically, all the really xeric habitat was under attack. So if it was improved before, I guess their idea was to make it better. But it's worth noting also that the scrub there at Jonathan Dickinson supports Curtis milkweed. That's state listed as an endangered species. It includes 4-petal pawpaw, which is federally listed as an endangered species. and Lily brought it to my attention that there are two trichostemas, blue curls, endemic, that are, I guess, recently described or discovered, that are also known to be present on the property and presumably in the scrub. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. Yep.
So not listed, at least not yet, but if they're really just newly described.
One of
Listen,
them, the species name is named after this Hobie point.
okay. Um,
Oh, I just wanted to point out that this kind of rhetoric for especially for scrub and scrubby flatwoods ecosystems has been used on split oak to say, oh, we restored it, which means it's not pristine. And so now it's completely justified to destroy it for something else.
oh,
And so this might be a playbook that might be used in other future development plans of natural areas.
Definitely.
well, if we want to think about indicator species, when it comes to scrub, I don't think there's a better one than the scrub jay, and there are scrub jays there. So that would imply that there's some pretty good habitat there, some pretty good scrub. I did think it was appropriate to include a list of the 9 parks that had these proposals. And so here is that list, and it summarizes what was planned for all of those parks. Golf courses, it's at Jonathan Dickinson. A couple of them were to receive 350 room lodges. Lodge sounds really cozy. It sounds like sitting by a warm fire, I guess, on a cold night. But these were hotels, 350 rooms, pickleball courts, disc golf courses. You could see it kind of runs the gamut. I made a mistake there at Grayton Beach State Park. As I recall, they had pickleball courts in mind for there as well. And so now just to take another quick look at, in this case, Topsail Hill State Park. This is, you're looking at a small part of it. And this was one of the maps that DEP shared with their proposal. And when I look at it, I see that there's already a lot there. I've visited this park. There are, facilities there to support public use. And they wanted to add a 350 room hotel to the mix. And just looking at the entirety of the park, it's less than 2,000 acres in total size, as I recall. And you can see that area where the existing facilities are. And really, that's already a pretty big footprint for facilities to accommodate public access and use. So when we think about a 350 room lodge, what might that look like? And I just did a very quick little analysis. And by quick, I mean, I spent maybe 10 or 15 minutes doing this. This is a 72 room hotel in my local area. And I figured, I just used Google Earth. The building footprint itself is a ½ acre. And, you can extrapolate from that how large the footprint for a 350 room hotel would be. Maybe they could build it up, make it 6 or 8 stories so that you could see it from everywhere in the park. I don't know. I also did a little calculation. How much parking would that require? And so you can actually do a search, and this information comes right up. The average parking spaces per hotel room is 1.24. That's kind of like an industry standard. And so multiply that by 350 rooms, you need 434 parking places. at 300 to 350 square feet per space. That's also standard, and that counts for aisles and islands and exit lanes. But anyway, we're talking about a pretty big footprint here, a pretty intensive development in a state park. Totally ludicrous. And I don't play pickleball. I know people who do. I know it's really popular, and I don't fault anybody for liking to get out there and exercise. And so, here's just your typical regulation pickleball court. But we have a video clip from the press conference that the Native Plant Society helped organize in Tallahassee this past Tuesday. Lily represented us there. She read a statement, and we do have a video clip. I was just thinking this might be a good time if you could share that video clip with us.
Sure, yeah. You won't be able to see it, Gene, but everybody in the audience will.
Okay.
Okay.
I've seen it.
You've seen it. All right, I will pan to it now.
All right.
I'm the Director of North Florida Programs for the Florida Native Plant Society. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to the education, conservation, and preservation of Florida native plants and ecosystems. And we have chapters all over the state, and here in Tallahassee we have the Magnolia chapter. We're gathered here today for a movement that I feel like I've been waiting my whole life to see. This is a bipartisan coalition of Floridians who care about their ecosystems that they have been watching be chipped away and degraded for their entire lives, and we're tired of it. Our state parks are our natural gems, and they are irreplaceable. The purpose of our state parks is to preserve outstanding examples of our unique and biodiverse ecosystems and to provide a place for Floridians to experience them. These unique ecosystems are home to plants and animals that exist nowhere else in the world. And they also provide ecosystem services that humans rely upon, cleaning our air and water, buffering our communities from floods and storm winds, and giving us a place to experience the peace and joy of nature. These are sacred places, and we need them. There are many, many places in Florida for golf courses, resort hotels, pickleball courts, and disc golf courses. But state parks are absolutely not those places. You can enjoy luxury resorts or play disc golf anywhere in Florida, but we go to our parks to experience and appreciate the real Florida. The Florida Native Plant Society respectfully implores Governor DeSantis to heed the will of the people and simply call off this initiative.
And we're back.
Okay. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I'm sorry that I intruded on Lily's comments there at the beginning.
That was me.
And I want to point out that building in the background, that is the headquarters for the Department of Environmental Protection in Tallahassee. So we were right there on their front steps. And
I think it would be a good time to mention that FDEP employees many of our members work for FDEP, many of our friends work for FDEP. These people are, dedicating their lives to protecting and conserving and managing our public lands, and we should be appreciative of them and treating them with respect. It's not these plans are not coming from them.
That's a very important point. Yes, there are a lot of dedicated people there. I have no doubt that the people who work in the Park Service are very dedicated. That's one of the reasons we have such outstanding state parks. I don't believe for a second that these plans came from them. But it was important I think, to send a message
Yes.
to the people who did float this horrible idea. And I think it also makes a statement to the staff at DEP that we actually stand with them. We
Yes.
are all about conserving these lands. They do a great job, and we support them in that. And I'm very proud of our state park system. I did want to make one of the points I wanted to make when we were looking at that hotel. The 15 minutes that I invested, I suspect I did more research on what a 350 room hotel means than the people who put this proposal together.
True. The parking alone is like
Massive.
astronomical.
Yeah. And so again, I'm not going to belabor the point about pickleball or disc golf, frisbee golf. But as Lily said, there are lots of places you can do that. You don't need a pristine natural area to do it. And in fact, those kinds of activities would intrude on other people's enjoyment
True.
of nature. So, you can put them any place. If we need more places for that, and the state wants to invest in that, then buy places for it, but don't put them in state parks. And if state parks are maxed out because so many people go to visit them, because they're so beautiful and such wonderful places to visit, then that means maybe we should add to our inventory of state parks.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of solutions we need. Lily, you told me that you had done some investigating about listed species at Topsail. I had mentioned a few that we know
Yes.
occur at Jonathan Dickinson.
So there are several endemic species. Most of them are at least state listed at Topsail, including Godfrey's golden aster, Chrysopsis godfreyi, Cruz's golden aster, Chrysopsis cruziana, Gulf Coast lupin, Lupinus westianus, large leaf joint weed, Polygonella macrophylla, Curtis's sandgrass, which was formerly Spirabolus basii, but is now a different genus. It starts with a C and I can't remember. And then there are many other, Rexia salicifolia. I can't remember the common name of that one. Sarracenia leucophylla, Sarracenia psittacina, Sarracenia rosea, so several pitcher plant species. Begonia ophioglossaides, which is one of our native terrestrial orchids, Cleisteopsis aureum camporum, another terrestrial orchid, and Asclepias virigula, which is a rare milkweed, southern milkweed.
Quite a long list, and really does represent what an amazing natural area Topsail is. And anybody listening, if you haven't been there, it's truly spectacular and well worth a visit.
Yeah, and I'll mention we had Jeff Talbert, who's a former employee at Topsail, came to speak at our press conference as well. And he talked about what a unique and, relatively pristine area it is and how important it is biologically.
Okay. So we really did achieve a pretty wonderful success in fighting back this proposal. And it very quickly came to our attention that there was also a proposal. This was one that was acted on by the governor and cabinet in June to take 324 acres of Withlacoochee State Forest, transfer ownership of that to an adjacent golf course resort property in exchange for 800 acres, a couple counties to the north. And I just want to talk about that a little bit because I think it's important to recognize now, as I said at the beginning, public lands are really under assault. We saw this coming. It looked like it was coming from a bunch of different directions, and now it feels like just an avalanche. So we didn't know this had happened. It really did happen in the shadows. And so now here is another fight that we're going to have to wage. In this case, explain this map a little bit. That big area in red you see in the middle, that is a golf course resort called Cabot Citrus Farms. It's in Hernando County, the northern part of the county, right adjacent to the Citrus County line. If you're not familiar with Withlacoochee State Forest, it's got some of the finest sandhill habitat in the state. And these areas that you see in green are all they're publicly owned lands that everything north of that highway, 98, is part of Withlacoochee State Forest. The areas to the south are managed by the Fish and Wildlife Commission. There are some gaps there, but there's a project well underway. It's been in progress for about 20 years now to link this part of Withlacoochee State Forest with coastal lands, including the Chassahowitzka Wildlife Management Area. So it's really important for habitat connectivity. And the area you see in yellow, that 324 acres, that is the parcel that's proposed to swap. And, you know, maybe it's a for-profit company, Cabot Citrus Farms. They have golf courses all over the world. Some of them are very famous, considered some of the top golf courses in the world. Right now, they have 3 golf courses there on their property. And you might not be able to make out from this imagery, they have lots of land left. But I don't know how many golf courses they want to build. Maybe they have something else in mind for this 100 or 324 acres. But there it is, contiguous to public lands. I have another map that illustrates where important sandhill is, and the entirety of that jumps out as important for sandhill based on analyses conducted by the Florida Natural Areas Inventory. So it's really got a lot of potential to be restored to find sandhill habitat. Right now, it's sand pine plantation, and it has been for a number of years. It's mature sand pines. It's right adjacent to the Suncoast Parkway. And in fact, those lands were purchased and then given to the Florida Forest Service to manage as part of the state forest as mitigation for impacts to sandhill habitat from the construction of that Suncoast Parkway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you take land that was mitigation for impacts, and now, you know, a private developer, they have other ideas for how that land should be used.
And we can't also move on without mentioning the ecological impacts of golf overall in the area, the amount of fertilizer that goes into our waterways and affects water quality, the amount of pesticides and herbicides that are used that affect water quality, and all of the life around as well.
Yeah, that site there, Withlacoochee State Forest, it's right on the Brooksville Ridge. It's probably no more than 4 or 5 miles from Chassahowitzka Springs. And right now, you know, that spring is polluted by nutrients, and the second largest contributor, the largest contributor to that nitrate pollution is septic tanks, but second on the list is turf fertilizer. So yes, that's the last place we should be putting even more golf courses, because right now they're already polluting Chassahowitzka Spring and Homosassa Spring just to the north. I wanted to show, this is the parcel that they're proposing to swap. It's that small area you see in orange. It's 800 plus acres, so it's twice the size of what they want in exchange. But it's not contiguous to any conservation lands. The green you see, that identifies Florida Wildlife Corridor. It is in the Florida Wildlife Corridor, as is Withlacoochee State Forest in that parcel. But this parcel that they would want to provide in exchange, it's in pine plantation, has been for many years. It's not contiguous with any conservation lands. It's not proposed to be purchased for conservation. So the story about what the governor and cabinet did in June during their meeting, they basically gave the Acquisition and Restoration Council and the Secretary of DEP authority to determine if that Withlacoochee State Forest parcel can be surplused, basically given to private ownership for development. And it does require a determination, an official decision that those lands no longer are valuable for conservation. I don't know how that can happen. They're very valuable for conservation. It requires that the Florida Forest Service give permission. It requires that this parcel would have to be incorporated into a Florida Forever project. So, I think there's a pretty high bar there. And, I think there are a lot of us that are going to be fighting like heck against this. So you'll probably be hearing more from us when this issue is finally put on the agenda for an ARC meeting, ARC being the acronym for the Acquisition and Restoration Council. And so, I think just as we beat back this initiative to provide incompatible development in the state parks, I think we have a really good chance at being successful in this case. And at some point, maybe the state should consider buying this 800 plus acre parcel, but that doesn't necessitate that you give away, a wonderful piece of 324 acres adjacent to a state forest that is just primed for sandhill restoration.
Eugene.
Those are all the slides that I wanted to present. I really think that this issue is something that we should all discuss together. And I'm hoping that there might be some questions and some comments from those of you that are out there listening.
I do.
The one last thing I want to mention, and this has also just really come to light, there was a bill that was passed by the legislature just this past session, House Bill 781, and it really kind of slipped past everybody. But what it did was it opened the door for public-private partnerships to be initiated basically from outside an agency, and for if that partnership if it met the approval of the agency, that they could just move forward and implement these projects without it being a bidded project, basically no bid contracts.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we saw happening.
Yeah, so it
State
allows
park did.
unsolicited proposals for
Yes.
public-private partnerships without a competitive bidding process, which really allows developers to have, basically market to their development on our public lands.
Yes.
And it was sponsored by House of State Representative Chuck Clemens. It was supported and voted for almost unanimously by both Republicans and Democrats. The bill was introduced by Senator Jim Boyd. And only two Republican senators, Keith Perry and Blaise Ingoglia, voted against it. So it had bipartisan support, which is, definitely concerning.
It is. Every Democrat in the legislature voted for this bill, and it did. It basically allowed, this nonprofit, they called themselves a nonprofit, to just go into the governor's office and propose building golf courses in Jonathan Dickinson. And then if everybody agrees this is a swell idea, they don't have to go. It's a no bid contract. It really, it almost looks like it was tailor made to allow this exact kind of project to move forward. So, there were some discussions going on. Is this even legal, what they're proposing? How can they do this? And how could they not even, if they're going to do it, open it up for bidding?
Yeah, it was very
unusual. It's not the way state government works. But with this bill, it does. So it looks like this bill passed to make that exact kind of thing legal just before it reared its ugly head.
It kind of allows them to fast track the whole process of these traditionally, the traditional bidding process, and then which had a lot of transparency, and then public meetings. It still requires public meetings, but when we get 1 week in advance for a public meeting,
the plan is already in place.
Yeah.
Oh no, what are they going to say? We have a contract already? Are you violating our contract law? And so not only are our public lands sitting there getting surrounded by development, becoming more and more valuable, lots of people looking at them, now you can do an end run around the processes in place to protect this land from incursions.
Yeah. Well, and we were wondering, what can we do to prevent this from happening again? And Senator Gail Harrell, Jonathan Dickinson State Park is in her district, and she has indicated that she is prepared to submit a bill to try and prevent this kind of thing from happening again. And I believe that there may be other legislators that would also be interested in sponsoring a bill that would do that. Right now, it looks like one of the things that bill has to do is undo this bill that they just passed this year. So that is something that the Native Plant Society's lobbyist, Travis Moore, is going to be working on for us. He's already working to find legislators, legislative support for a bill that will prevent this kind of thing from happening in the future. But it hasn't happened yet. And as I said, we see other things coming down the line that indicate this. It's just going to be raining proposals to turn public conservation lands over to developers who, I don't fault them for eyeing our conservation land, but it's ours.
Oh, I do.
Well, I mean, they seek profit. Well, but these are our jewels, and keep your hands off.
Yeah, and I think, you know, reaching out to all of your representatives to let them know that you are, you know, opposed to this bill that was passed recently and how egregious it is and how upset you are about it is a great idea.
And coincidentally, Blaise Ingoglia is one of my legislators. So I just heard that a couple of days ago. He was one of the only no votes, and I may have to reach out and thank him for
Yeah,
that.
thank them.
Yeah. I don't know if it's because he saw this kind of thing coming out of it, but we sure know the Pandora's box that it opened now. So
Did we answer some
Yeah,
questions,
we have
Val?
loads of questions. So just because our members are so important to us, we have some questions from members that were submitted in advance and comments by email. So just so people know, we do these on YouTube because it's the most accessible platform, and also Zoom caps you out at a certain number of people, and we don't want to pay for a larger license. So we don't require people to log into Google in order to comment or ask questions. You can always email me in advance, communications@fnps.org. So we had 2 people email us about and text me about other conservation issues, other known incompatible uses of conservation land. Riverwatch in Jensen Beach is a coastal conservation area with some sort of water access. This isn't the first I've heard of it. I'm familiar with this project, but there's a dredge and fill permit listed for this conservation easement, and so I will be reaching out to you about that, Gene, so you're aware of that. So if
okay.
anybody is on the live stream and does know about it, please email me and Gene and let us know. Have you heard of that, Gene?
I haven't heard anything about that, and I think this does underscore the fact that it's easy for things like this to stay on the down low and escape our attention. So we really do need our members to be our eyes and ears, and
Yes.
when something like this comes up, please don't just assume that we know about it. I can't promise that we'll always be able to jump on it and beat it back, but we certainly can't do that if we don't know it's happening.
It looks like this is a 12, almost 13-acre FDEP conservation easement that has a manatee birthing area on the Indian River Aquatic Preserve. And it is, they're wanting to dredge it. There's I see a change.org petition that's already out about it, if anybody is interested in looking that up or signing that.
And I like to think that that's something that Fish and Wildlife Commission and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service would have an interest in if it's going to potentially impact manatees. But I don't know any of the details about it, so not really able to comment
But thank you
intelligently.
for bringing it to our attention. That's exactly what we need, is our members to keep us up to date with all of these things, because they're going to be coming like at an increasing pace, especially with this bill that passed.
And then also the Emeralda Marsh Conservation Area in Lake County, which is in North Lake County near Eustis. And as far as I'm aware, that's like a full development of the conservation area.
And there's a public meeting planned for that one already. Let me see here. I have that. September 4th. We can share, I can share this to our social media stories, but it's going to be in Tavers, Florida.
It's very
At 9 a.m.
And that's a pretty important conservation area owned by the St. Johns River Water Management District, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
They want to put in, or I guess it's proposed zoning for 1,400 homes.
And they want to do that on that,
Emeralda Marsh and Lake Yale. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
yeah, so
again, if you're not already signed up for our action alerts, please sign up for our action alerts. I think this is a great time for people who, we all feel kind of powerless with everything that is happening in the world right now. But there is a lot that you can do, especially in your local area and in Florida. And what you do really does have an impact when you are acting locally. So sign up for our action alerts so that you can attend these meetings. If you need, ideas about what to talk about or anything, we're planning on having another lunch and learn next month where we're going to talk more about being politically engaged or, active in conservation issues in your local area. Just going to a meeting and voicing your concern, you don't have to be eloquent. You don't have to state everything perfectly. You can just say how you feel about it. And it's really important that, that they hear from you. We need citizens speaking up in defense of our public lands and in defense of our wild lands in Florida. And that is really the only thing stopping, that can stop development is us showing up and speaking up.
and when we do it, it works.
It does work. We saw that.
Yes.
right, and this issue kind of shows how it took basically the entire state getting upset.
Yeah.
We can see on these smaller local issues the fights are long and hard, and there's a lot of losing on environmental fronts. And we do, like, we obviously encourage our chapters to get together and go to their local commissions and have a policy and legislation chair and to be aware of what's going on and to go to zoning meetings. And our chapters are all volunteers, and so this is like, it's a very difficult situation to be operating under for our local chapters. And of course, we really want to encourage people to be involved locally and to be involved statewide. We have our policy and legislation committee that Eugene runs, and so it's really important to be engaged and to recognize that this particular issue worked really well because it was able to mobilize so many people. But otherwise, it is pretty difficult to mobilize the numbers of people on individual issues. And so if you're just hanging out, doing regular life stuff all the time, please consider getting engaged in at least one group and being just somebody there to help out on a regular basis. Like, yes, to have come out when it was critical for this particular issue, but the more people we have being aware of these issues and being available, and people know who you are and people have your phone number and they can text you, and you can be there for them to show up to a meeting, or maybe you're scanning a city council agenda every once in a while. You know a city council member, a county council person. These are valuable skills and networking that if we had more people engaged, that these kind of smaller issues could be smaller issues, unlike the state parks issue, but maybe smaller issues like the Withlacoochee State Forest issue and the Emerald Marsh conservation issue. Then local organizers could have 40, 50 people to call on, as opposed to now maybe they have 10 or 15.
Yeah.
Who are maybe uncomfortable with public speaking. So you can sort of be a reserve to help people out if you get on the ball now.
So if you go to our website, fnps.org, you click on the menu, it says news, and under news, it says alerts, and you click on that. And on the left, you can sign up for email alerts. And then that's our page where we update, what is going on right now. So please pay attention to that page, and we'll try to do our best to keep it updated. Just a reminder that, we have 3.5 employees, or 3 1/3 right now. across the state. Like, we do have, you know, a lot of members, and we have our board. Gene is our board president right now, and he's doing an excellent job. Thank you, Gene. And but we have a lot of members, volunteer members, but we have limited staff, so we are doing the best we can. I think we do a pretty good job, though. But pay attention to that, and it's a great time actually to be very vocal to your representatives, because an election is coming up, and there are many people that are, you know, running again, and it's a great time to influence them because they have to listen.
Well, they do. And one good time to catch them when they'll listen, right after the elections, it will be legislative delegation season. And that is the time when every county will schedule a meeting of the legislators that represent that county. And that's a public meeting. You can go, you can speak to any issue you want. And we like to encourage our members to go. And there have been times in the past when we have sent targeted alerts to members, you know, members within a particular county, to let them know when their legislative delegation meeting is taking place. And we've highlighted issues that really are important to the Native Plant Society, provide talking points, so that, you know, trying to make it simple for our members to speak up on behalf of native plants and native plant communities when they go to these meetings. Of course, if there's some other totally unrelated issue of concern to you, no, that's your opportunity to bring that up as well. But that is really the most convenient, the easiest time to speak directly to your legislators, because it is a public meeting right there in your local community. And you usually have to sign up in advance in order to get your 3 minutes at the podium. But it can be very effective if you show up. So I think this will be a year where we are going to make a renewed effort to keep our members informed about those legislative delegation meetings, encourage you all to go, and provide you with some guidance on things that we think you should bring up to advocate on behalf of native plants. And so watch your inboxes for that. And I just have to emphasize again, you know, we can provide this information to you, but you are our eyes and ears. And so please make sure that the lines of communication run in both directions. I have an email address, president@fnps.org. You know, I shudder to think sometimes what might happen to my inbox. And I can tell you I had at least 1,000 emails in the last week about state parks, at least. But, you know, that goes with the job. So if there's something going on in your community that you really think we need to be aware of, please bring it to our attention.
So we did have some questions about Withlacoochee.
Okay.
Someone would like you to put the entire Hernando County map back up. Leather Tuscadero, thank you for the creative name.
I'm not really prepared to put up a map of the whole county. I could put up the maps that I had.
Yeah, just whatever you had, the one that was the furthest zoomed out.
Okay.
And then there was a suggestion for us to do an assessment of both parcels, the conservation value of both parcels.
Yes. I'm still in the process of that. Let's see. Okay. So this is the 324 acre parcel that's proposed to be incorporated into that golf course resort. Were there specific questions about it? I can just leave it up, but
Sorry, I didn't turn myself
yes.
up for the audience. So what land cover is on the proposed swap land?
Right now it is almost all sandpine plantation. Pretty heavy canopy.
So that's not terribly difficult to restore. That is not a heavily intensive restoration process because they basically start burning. And FNA has surveyed recently just the area north of this property, which has a lot of rare and listed species in it. And having that contiguous property would be, I think it would be very likely to be easily restored.
Again, Withlacoochee State Forest, there are a number of large tracts. This is at the southern end of the citrus tract, and it is amazing sandhill habitat in there. They have lots of red-cockaded woodpeckers, a lot more than they had historically because they have done such an outstanding job with their prescribed burning program. Just beautiful habitat. We have field trips there on a regular basis. And I will say that I'm making plans to go out this weekend and explore this 324 acres. I want to look at it with my own eyes and see what I can see.
That would be great if you take some photos and videos that we can
Oh,
use to
I will.
inform our members.
I will be. I'll be going out there with the president of the Hernando
Oh,
Audubon.
nice.
And so we'll have whatever we can learn from that trip. And I've already done some GIS kind of analysis, but there's no substitute for being on the ground where you can see the gopher tortoise burrows and see the kestrels and whatever rare plants might be present.
And speaking of, the improvement of red-cockaded woodpeckers, and that is all land management, right? And in his press conference, Governor DeSantis mentioned kind of, if people don't want to improve state parks, then we don't need to spend the money on it. But there is a severe need of funding in state parks. They have not been receiving the funding, I believe, that they previously, or the funding continues to be cut. So we need to advocate for the funding of our state parks, for land management, for staffing, for basic maintenance of the infrastructure that already exists on the park. Like, we know the Lookout Tower at Jonathan Dickinson State Park has been closed for a while because it's in disrepair, and apparently they don't have the funds to, or they have not allocated the funds to fix it. And those state park employees, I think they probably deserve a raise. I mean, those people, they live on the property. They are such hard workers. And I would think we need to increase our budget for state parks, but not be building new commercialized infrastructure on them.
No.
So that's another thing we can mention, when we speak to our representatives.
And ultimately, using this parcel as an example, I think we improve it by clear cutting the sandpine for starters, and by then following that up with random planting of longleaf pine. And I have no doubt that that is the approach that the Florida Forest Service will take with this parcel, assuming that it continues to be in their ownership. Again, they haven't had their hands on it for long, That new highway just opened up, and they received it as mitigation for impacts. But I have every faith they know what they're doing when it comes to restoring Sandhill, because they've done an awful lot of that in Withlacoochee State Forest. And the way I use the word improve, that's what it entails. And hopefully in time we'll see longleaf pine replacing the sand pine, and we'll see a lot of beautiful ground cover of wiregrass and other native sandhill ground cover. And that's the kind of improvement I want to see. In
Yeah.
terms of funding, it is true that the parks and land management in general for conservation lands, they always seem to get a little less than they want or need. And if you think about it, when that happens every year, that deficit just keeps getting larger and larger. And so then you experience issues like the tower at Jonathan Dickinson no longer being sound for people to use. So the upside there is, one thing the legislature did this past session, one bill they passed that we celebrated was one that would take the gambling compact money, regardless of how you feel about gambling, that's happening in the state's going to get a cut of it. And they passed a bill that would direct their proceeds from that compact to land conservation and land management. So we're really hoping, I think we're going to have to bird dog that a little bit. The proof is in the pudding. We'll see how they direct that money, but we were sure happy when they directed that that is how it should be spent. And we just need to make sure that it's not spent to build pickleball courts. It's spent to maintain the facilities that are out there to support compatible uses. It's out there to support prescribed burning programs and habitat restoration
And having staff, like having an ecologist on staff. I believe it used to be, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, it used to be that most state parks had an ecologist on staff, and now it seems like there's like a regional that's ecologist that is overseeing multiple state parks, at
Yes.
least up here in the Panhandle.
I'm sure they need staff, rangers and people, the staffers that work with the public to accommodate the public use. But yes, on the resource management side, they also need more staff.
And if we want to have good staff, we need to pay them adequately as well. I do know some people who have worked at state parks, and they do barely make enough money to get by. And that's why you see a lot of turnover with the staff at state parks. So that is something that we need to advocate for as well.
Yes, there was just to clarify, when I asked Eugene about the land cover that was on the swap land, you talked about it being pine plantation, sand pine plantation, right?
Yes.
Okay, but then the proposed land that is currently in conservation, the 324 acres, that is mostly sandhill.
No. Okay,
No.
that is the pine plantation, the
It is
area in
also
the
pine
orange.
plantation.
The 324 acres that would, I hate to put it that way, that are proposed to be swapped, that is a sand pine plantation. If I could zoom in on it more, you'd be able to see through that green shading that I put down there. But it's pretty heavily forested with sand pine. Historically, it was sandhill.
Okay.
And
so it's not historically old, like sand pine scrub. It's historically old sandhill that is currently a sand pine plantation that is,
yes,
in need of restoration, and that wouldn't be too difficult to restore.
Yeah.
Yes.
It would likely, having not seen the site myself.
And again, that's one of the reasons I want to go out there and see it with my own eyes, but I don't think it's really been severely disturbed. Uh, the soils are still intact,
And there's a seed bank in that soil, and yeah.
yeah. And I'm hoping I'm hoping I'll see some ground cover out there that would be indicative of sandhill just itching to get out again.
Yeah, it is amazing
Yeah.
once you start burning what happens.
And,
Any other
and
questions?
Yes, Grant.
provide some sun to the ground. Under that plantation, not much can grow, but
Grant is pointing out that there were sand skinks. There's sand skinks on the land that's currently in conservation.
Are they federally endangered?
Yeah, they're federal.
Okay,
That's how
so,
that's part of how we got the Warea area,
yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
because of that sand skink mitigation fund run through the Nature Conservancy.
yeah, it wasn't the endangered plant, it was the endangered critter.
Always.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Okay,
but you're
so-
saying somebody has indicated that there are sand skinks on this 324 acres?
Yeah, Grant Gelhart.
Wow, I wasn't aware of that. That would be extremely significant. I don't know how in the world you trade that in for golf courses or golf villas or whatever it is they have in mind.
Okay, there's a lot more great stuff here in the comments.
Yeah.
I will send you the comments after, Gene, in case there's any you want to address.
Right.
But there is a question, there have been a number of questions about what do we do now? How can we help now on this state parks issue and these other issues?
On the state park issue, let your legislator know where you stood on this. That will help pave the way for them to support a bill that will close the door on this happening again. That's one step they can take. We already know a lot of legislators have already spoken out, but not the vast majority of them. And I think it would do well for them to
And
hear
mention
from
this bill, the HB, the House Bill, is it 781?
781, I
Yeah.
believe. Yes, that's a
Definitely
real
look,
stinker.
everyone should look that up and mention that to their representatives. Is this FDP survey about the initiative still active, Val?
I haven't checked. I will look
Okay,
now.
that's okay. But FDP did have a survey that they put out asking for, citizen input on this Great Outdoors Initiative, which is it's still active, Val says. So you can fill out that survey. That's something you can do. Again, sign up for our action alerts. There's also other organizations like the Sierra Club of Florida that are very active as well. I know Grant is part of who mentioned earlier, who commented earlier, he's part of Sierra Club, and we're working closely with them. So just you have to speak up, attend these meetings, and stay tuned, stay vigilant.
And if you could quickly provide a link to that survey, I
Done.
assume they
In
might
the
have
chat.
taken that down, but if it's still up, we should all go to that survey.
I think Valerie put it in the chat on YouTube,
Okay,
so
good.
everybody can fill it out.
And then
And-
when it comes time, when this issue goes to ARC, the Acquisition and Restoration Council, we need to let them know where we stand and just nip this one in the bud. Don't let it go any further.
And collaboration is going to be key. I think, we couldn't have been so powerful if we didn't collaborate with other organizations like the Florida Wildlife Federation, the Sierra Club of Florida, and Florida Springs Council. We're going to continue to work with them. And I think that is how we're going to be as powerful as possible. That is our strength, is when we all work together on these issues to fight together, so that we're not, all reinventing the wheel in our own little corners. And we're working more effectively with less staff. We don't have a whole lot of money or staff, so we have to do the best that we can and make use of all of our volunteer members and our collaborations.
Strength in numbers. So we work best when we work together.
Yes, and we're having, this is probably the third time someone has asked me if we're gonna create a petition for the Withlacoochee issue and maybe write up something for people to follow up on. And so just to let everybody know, like, we are just starting to act on this. You know, we're not a conservative organization from a conservation standpoint. You know, we love conservation and we like to act strongly and quickly, but you know, we like to have our ducks in a row before we take action. And so, you know, we will get talking points to you guys and have actionable information for you guys soon on this issue.
Yeah, we've only known about it for a matter of days, and you know, at least in this particular case, unlike the state park issue, we have a little bit of time to get our ducks in a row to really figure out
And
what
if
to
any
do.
of you watching and listening want to volunteer to help us with this, if you want to help out in any way, you know, reach out to us. And you know, if you're really great at you know, putting together like something like that, that would be useful for us, because we also are, you know, having to do other work as well.
Yes, the rest of the world doesn't stop.
Okay, so yeah, so you can reach Eugene at the email address I provided. You can reach me at communications@fnps.org, which I also provide to like everyone. And please provide us with questions and additional information on any new projects or these projects that we discussed today. Sign up for the action alerts, the link that I posted. Make sure to follow up with the DEP survey if you didn't provide that. And then Gene's final to-do for the state parks issue until something else comes up is to contact your legislator and, you know, ask them what their position is on this and that you really dislike it, et cetera, and ask them about that bill.
And there is a meeting having to do with the Emeralda Marsh Rural Protection Area that we'll share to our stories on social media, so you can get information on that. All of these things are happening so quickly, it's difficult for us to change our website even to keep up with them. So stay tuned to our social media, because we're sharing all that we can. And we are, you know, co-sharing from other organizations that are getting information together as well.
Yes. And Grant, if you're still out there, I'd appreciate learning more about the sand skinks, and if there are other species, if you have other information about listed species.
Grant clarified that he was asking. He didn't put a question mark, but he clarified he was asking if there are sand skinks on the property, unfortunately.
FNA would probably know about that.
I'll definitely be keeping my eyes open for them, but they're not easy to see.
But I think the markings left by them are.
Yes, that's what I'll be watching for. I don't think I'll see the skinks themselves. They're little squirrels.
I'm a little skeptical.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they could possibly be in the adjoining property, though, in the sandhill that is more intact, and it would be likely habitat for them if it's restored. You know.
Yeah.
But that's why they're endangered.
Okay, well, on that note, we are many minutes over. Thank you, Gene, so much for your leadership on this and for this presentation, and we just appreciate.
And thank you. Val has been doing incredible work behind the scenes, everyone should know. She's working tirelessly, and her knowledge and skills and passion is just, you know, I just want to point that out. Yeah. She's great.
Lily was in Tallahassee on Tuesday.
I live here.
Hillary was at Honeymoon Island. So yeah. Well done, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. All right, I hope everyone has a great weekend, and join us next month for our next Lunch and Learn on additional engagement with conservation issues.
Take care.